Hello, everyone. Welcome back to You Plant, We Water. I am Dr. Toy Flowers, licensed professional counselor with a specialization in couples and family counseling, as well as a professor of graduate clinical mental health counseling. Here on this side of the world, we focus on combining faith, spirituality, and mental health and relationship satisfaction. We are hoping to provide you with expert knowledge, tips, not so expert advice that will bring you the thriving, healthy relationships that you deserve to have in your life. So, having said all that, I'd like to introduce my lovely co host.
Hi, I'm Trisha. I'm a minister and a lifestyle coach. And as always, we are so happy you're here.
This is true. So, today, beautiful people, we are talking about Black excellence, right? All the things, Black girl magic, Black affluence, all the things that make Black beautiful and excellent because it truly is. And we're not going to just be sharing opinion about Black excellence. We're coming with receipts. We got the facts about it. And the reason this is so important is because we're linking this into the power of positivity, right? So the Bible says, as a man thinketh, so he is, right? And life and death come out of the tongue, right? So come from the mouth. And it is very true. What you speak, what do I want to say, takes root and it will order your steps in many ways. And so, as we know, in the media, you know, just in the world, all over the place, there's so much negativity about Black people, the Black experience, and what it means to be Black. And a lot of times the truth is hidden. And so we're going to do our little part to share some of those things, especially in this season, as we were discussing, because there's so much happening. I'm not even talking about in the broader world with politics and all that. I just mean, it's like prom season, graduation, and we're like celebrating all the things that are happening. And so, what better time than to highlight this idea of Black excellence? All right. So before we go into it in more depth, I have presented on this very topic nationwide at conferences about Black mental health. It's called the Black Mental Health Symposium. So this is something that I have researched, and as I said, so I'm not just talking about my opinion. The things I'm going to share are facts, right? You don't trust me, look it up, right? But this show is called You Plant, We Water. And as an intro, I wanted to highlight, and I've mentioned this before, so if you go back to some other episodes, you'll find out. But I wanted to highlight the work of a famous researcher by the name of Masaru Emoto. And what he did was he studied water crystals. I had some images I had hoped to show you all this time, but it's looking like we may or may not be able to see those. So we'll probably link them later on the Facebook page. But what he did is he began to look at water crystals under a microscope to see how they were formed and things like that. And if you've never seen a water crystal under a microscope, it's sort of like a snowflake. That's what it will look like. However, the shape of a water crystal will change based off what is spoken to the water crystal. This is factual. I couldn't make this up if I wanted to, right? So the shape of the water crystal will change based off of what is spoken to that water. All right. Now, what we know about the Most High is He's in the water. He's in the water. And what we know about our body, your body is made up of I think it's over 80% water. So, what is said to you, the environment, what you say to yourself, it does matter. So, what Dr. Emotu found was that when things like I love you and thank you were said to the water crystals, they had this beautiful symmetry about them and they looked unique like snowflakes, right? No two snowflakes are alike. However, the same water, if I hate you or you're stupid, or he even has images where he said, I will kill you. And the water crystals became completely deformed where they didn't even look like crystals anymore. It started to look more like uh I don't know, like a gel or almost like acidic. So you got to check out these images, right? So the reason I mention all of that, because as we tied it in, what you hear, what you say, what you think and tell yourself, it affects you. And so that's why we want to talk about Black excellence. I want to pause before I go any further, sis, and see before we dive in, any thoughts about today's topic thus far? If not, no worries.
I am all about good evening, Latrice. I'm all about positive affirmations, and one of my love languages, as well as hers, is affirmation, and we come from a family of affirmationers. No,
We birthed it.
but no. So I'm 100% aware of the power in my own life, and I think it's befitting for me to just go ahead out here and say my daughter is going to have a birthday. She's not here, but they named something after her at the hospital, and it was because of affirmation. They called it the Ohana factor, and that is my daughter's name. And so they would say these things like, "Oh, she had a 1% chance of being deformed. I mean, not being deformed.
Right.
Let me reverse that." And then she would have a flat face, and it was scary when they told me that. And I thought, "Oh my gosh, she's gonna be a monster."
Beautiful.
Absolutely
Gorgeous.
stunning. And I'd like to say that I had a lot to do with that, but I know that it was the prayers and the absolute vigor that went into naming her and giving her all of that. And so it is absolutely 100% true. She was the sickest baby in the NICU. However, with prayers, she did phenomenal things. And so I just really encourage you to really take heed to this conversation because it absolutely does work.
Absolutely, right. And it's probably part of the reason why when we are seeking God, we are asked to pray, to actually speak. Whether you pray in your head, right? You're still using language because there's so much power in it. So, and I love that you mentioned my baby Ohana. She's so pretty. I like little mama.
Maybe we'll link that. No, I'm just playing.
I'm just so okay, so let's start talking about it, right? Black excellence. Now, I've given you a little teaser of why it's so important, but there's so much negativity, y'all, out there about just being Black. I remember growing up and being a little girl, and when I first learned about slavery in school, well, it might be just me, but I felt shame, right? I was, before that, I'm like, and then I'm like, wait a minute, my people were slaves. They had to serve your people. And so I felt ashamed when I first heard it because I didn't have the context to understand everything that took place with slavery and how the things that I could be proud about, the fact that my ancestors were enslaved, the fact that they tried to kill us off, and here we are, right? That we are physically stronger, all these, but I digress, right? Black excellence. So, did you know, Trish, you can tell me what you think about this. They have done the research, right? And this part became a little bit evident to Target recently. But did you know when we talk about Black money and the power in the Black spending, GDP, which stands for gross domestic product, right? Black Americans, just Black people that live in America, if we were a country of our own, we would have like the fourth highest GDP in the world. Okay. Obviously, among the highest is going to be like America. But if we were our own little nation, just Black people, that's how hard it would be, higher than some main big countries you've heard of, like Spain, right? That's how much spending power we have. And that became a little bit evident recently. But for so long, we haven't known it and we have not come together and recognize the power that our dollars have. But y'all, we could be a very, very powerful nation.
I agree. And we are a powerful nation. Just like we said, we are working on making sure we are speaking things into existence. We are powerful. We demand that our dollars, another caveat. So I have another page called, we don't, I forgot the name of it. Anyway, my whole premise is, if you don't like what I have, then I don't have to spend my dollars there. And that is how I've always behaved. My money is good everywhere. And since it is good everywhere, if you don't like what I have, or you don't think that our qualities or things like that are of value to you, we can take our money and take it elsewhere.
Exactly. And to your point, we have been doing this for years. Okay. Like something to go wrong. I don't want to name the products that I have personally boycotted for different seasons, but there have been many. There have been car brands, restaurants, um, all kinds of things until there was some type of because where you spend your money matters, right? And where we collectively spend our money matters. So I just remember when I found that out, my mind was blown. I was just like, wow, we couldn't really be an independent country. I'm going to talk about something that combats another myth about Black relationships. All right. So we hear this, and there's some truth to it. I'm not going to lie, but we hear this thing that, there's this idea that Black marriages don't succeed, that there aren't a lot of Black marriages, that Black relationships are somehow less stable than maybe other relationships. And I'm going to break this down a little bit for you so it starts to make sense. Yes and no. The reason there is some truth to a lack of stability in Black couple relationships is because it was systemically orchestrated to be that way. Prior to actual attempts to dismantle the Black family was strong. In the 50s or 60s, Black marriages lasted just as long as any other couple relationship. What happened and what was introduced was the welfare public housing system. And once that happened, you couldn't have a man in the household to get the assistance and the public aid, which began to dismantle the Black family. It goes deep. If you want more information, I'll try to put some articles in that'll show you, but it goes on and on and on. That plus mass incarceration, all of these types of things. But left on its own in its natural state, Black relationships thrive and are just as stable, healthy, and nurturing as any other relationship.
And with that being said, I remember, she's going to not remember this. I remember when I was in my 20s and I was so upset that I wasn't married. And my sister is a researcher by heart. I don't know if you guys figured that out or not, but she did the research and she sent me something and I was astonished. A lot of Black young women, you're not going to get married in your 20s. You are going to get married later in life. And statistically, your marriages last longer. And that's another thing that we've been told, like, well, you're not going to get married. And so you have this rush and pressure. And you might rush out and marry somebody you don't even like just because you want to get married. And so when you run, but don't do that. And that's the thing. You will get married. God will always provide. And it goes back to what we said earlier, the affirmations, making sure that you speak positive over yourself. And something my mom had told me a long time ago, which has always stuck with me. I don't need a lot of proposals. I just need the one. And I'm not looking for just any person. I'm looking for the person that God has designed and ordained for me. And so that's the thing that you have to continue to just speak over yourself and recognize that, yeah, there is some lack, but it's not as bad as you're thinking because, again, my mom would say, you can get married tomorrow. And it's true, I could. I have a lot of suitors out there, but I don't like those people. So it's the truth, okay? Sorry, keeping it a buck.
To that point, right? And we're going to be doing our Faith Over Fear Challenge. A lot of this is information that's out there is to propagate fear, right? The scarcity. And that is one that is told to Black women, it ain't no Black men, so they'll, settle or things like that. Don't do it, sis. There are plenty of good Black men. Plenty, right? So
plenty.
I don't think it's often said the reverse. You don't really hear like, hey, there's not a lot of Black women. But for anybody, they're out there. Speak positivity. Know what it is you're looking for, and then go out and live your life, right? But so I think we've touched on relationship survive. I love there was a comment from Latrice, and she mentioned Willie Lynch, which goes even before, right? I talked about the welfare system and public aid because I was trying to give you a little before and after to show you that there was a season where Black couple relationships were thriving. Also during this time, Black business was thriving. Think of Black Wall Street, all of these things. So we can do it, right? But Latrice talked about Willie Lynch. Whew, yeah, if you've never read the Willie Lynch letter, read it, all right? But it was a systematic process that a guy developed to keep slaves from stepping out of line. And it included things such as taking the Black man in front of the women and children and humiliating him and torturing him in many different ways, which then put fear in the heart of the Black mother. See how fear keeps coming up? But it put fear in the heart of the Black mother, who then would raise her sons to be subjugated to the white man out of fear that the same thing would happen to him. It goes on and on and on. But again, faith over fear, y'all. So thank you for that comment, Latrice. All right, more about Black excellence. Here's another one we hear about all the time: Black crime. Okay, right? Black people, oh, so much crime that, yeah, Black on Black crime. Black people are so violent. Da, da, da. No, it's not true. Black people are no more prone to crime than any other race of people. In fact, you could say, yes, there's such a thing as Black on Black crime, but there's white on white crime, Asian on Asian crime, Latino on Latino crime, because what we know, what the facts are about crime, is people are more likely to commit a crime against someone who looks like them, because crimes are committed based off of proximity, where you live, who you're close to. So in white areas, most of the crime are going to be white on white. In Black areas, most of the crime is going to be Black on Black, so on and so forth. Are there exceptions? Of course. But what we're talking about, what you hear in the media, are generalities. And the truth of the generality is we're not prone to violence. In fact, if you go way back and you start looking at being indigenous, inherently very peaceful, loving people. And you can sometimes see that when you're in a setting, large group setting, where we're all together. Think of like, I don't know, festivals. I was going to say family reunion, but then everybody is related. Concerts. Since you did.
I'm a festival concert goer, and I'll let her finish. But even like the house party.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Thousands upon thousands of people and very little security, right? Because when we come together as a community and we have a mutual respect, then we're going to always do the right things. And I'm affirming us, right? Even in my speech. And as she said, I also have a master's degree in political justice. So this is my topic of crime. None of this is actual factual, but it feels like it is being presented. And so we act in a way, and then you'll hear us speaking down upon ourselves. And then we'll say things like, well, let's talk about Black on Black crime, when we're talking about being discriminated against or police brutality. And those things don't help us. It isn't the same. And when you're having a crime, even when it is a Black on Black, there's another level when it's a police officer. There are things that I'm not a police officer, but you're sworn to, and it's to protect. And so we want to make sure that we are living in our best authentic selves. And thank you, Lloyd. God help us to live together. Yes, we have to live together and recognize that in these huge settings. I recently went to Beyonce's concert, and I had an amazing time. And I felt like I was a cowgirl. I've never been a cowgirl before, but I was at that moment. Awesome. And it's the community, and nothing happened. And that wasn't on the news. But if one person would have fell down or flipped around or anything, that would have been on the news, and it would have been like, oh, she's got her minions and she's trying to get people.
Yeah.
She's trying to get people. But it's, again, when we work out of fear and not our authentic God-given selves, you are not representing your best self. And we are here to beg of you to recognize that you are divinely made.
Yes, we want to water you, and this doesn't have anything against other groups of people, right? We love all people, Latinos, white, all of them. But right now, we are pouring into Black people to combat what you hear every day, right? There's something negative out there every day, everywhere. And what we're giving to you, we hope you'll pass it on and give it to your children. Remember, I talked about when I was a child and being like, wait, whoa, what? We were slaves and feeling some kind of way, until I got the context and really learned how strong you have to be to survive that. And the fact that I'm here right now, sitting on this camera as Dr. says something about who our people really are, right? Okay. Now, moving on from there. about Black excellence. If we try to give true time to this topic I'm about to mention next, we'd be here all day. Inventions. Oh my goodness. You all, most everything that exists, we've had a hand in. I'm just honest, like internet. I can't electricity, all the things, hairbrushes, irons. Um, the list is so
Everything
extensive.
that makes your life easier,
right.
we invented. Everything that makes your life better, we invented, or we had a hand in it. Now, sometimes we didn't get credit for things.
Most of the time.
But honestly, and so if it goes back to what you were saying, if our ancestors who didn't have college degrees, were not formally educated, were able to do these things, then what are we doing when we have access to everything at our hand in our phone, right? And so that is something that sure. But that is something that we have to continue to remember. And I wanted to say this too. In slavery, they made us work till the bones and our muscles detached. Do you know how powerful you are when your back is up against the wall? And this is my saying for myself. Nothing, no one could ever break me. What you can do is watch me blow up. And when I do, you'll be on the sideline saying, I didn't know she could do that. I didn't know either, but look at me doing it.
Get me. Oh. Right. So inventions, there's so much. I want to pause because I saw another great comment about ways, and it went back to Willie Lynch and division. And again, I want you to think back to the water crystals, right? Because that's a part of you. But Latrice mentioned light skin versus dark skin, old versus young, right? All of these things that are created to create dissension among us, right? And colorism is very real. I'm not going to tell you that it's not there. Colorism is real and it's something we need to deal with in our community. There's another term called featureism, right? So that's beyond whether you're light or dark, but it has to do with how European your features are, right? Like how your nose shape, the symmetry of your face, and all of these things. And anytime there's an ism, right, it means it's a bias that leads to discrimination. And these are isms that are within ourselves, but that were planted, okay, for a reason. And so part of our work in understanding Black excellence and really trying to set it on fire so that more things can be birthed is to combat all of that. You're beautiful, light, dark, in between, big nose, narrow nose, all the things, because you are fearfully and wonderfully made. Right. I was telling a little girl in church a few weeks ago because she's just a baby. Like I think maybe she ate, and she was talking about how big her stomach was. I just grabbed that little belly that was about this big and just looked at her and let her know you are gorgeous.
Affirmation.
Like understanding these things are so important. There is a documentary I want to recommend if you've never seen it. It's called Hidden Colors. I think there's 4 of them. They do a wonderful job of highlighting many of the achievements of Black Americans, right? And it's really good. And I want to encourage you all to check it out if you've never seen it. But more importantly, as you know, here we're all about relationships and family and all of that. We have to share this with our children, right? There isn't a Black history class in most schools. And as I said, there can be shame and things like that associated with being Black. And each of our households and our churches, right? Anywhere where Black people congregate, we can begin to dismantle some of that by sharing these things and making sure that our next generation of young people know what stock they come from, that they continue to tell the stories, and that we continue to produce Black excellence, right? Okay, let me see. I can't see how I'm doing on time. So I can keep going. It's time for some glasses, y'all. But the other piece I want to talk about, there's some other documentaries. Oh gosh, there's one about Black affluence, and it's talking about some of the Black billionaires and things like that. And we had a chance just yesterday to experience some Black affluence in New Orleans. Such. But my son is going to be going away to school, and he's chosen to go to a historically Black college. He'll be the first ever to do so. Go, baby. Anywho, he received a scholarship. And what was beautiful about him receiving this scholarship to go to a historically Black college is that the scholarship came from a Black family's foundation, right? So that's one of those things where we're like putting letting that Black dollar circulate. Let me just say that. And what was great, what I noticed is there were a lot of scholarships being awarded. And this was one of the few that were being awarded by a Black family. And you could just see the affluence, the elegance, the dignity they sat on that stage with. But what I really noticed is they gave big bucks. Okay. Like some of these scholarships was given like $2.25. They hit these kids with the big dollars, which was just so impressive. So one thing that's important, especially for young people who are may become the first generation to go to that next level, you might not be seeing the Black affluence, right? Oftentimes we can only see what's near us, and we may not get a chance to go to some of these more affluent areas, even in our own community. Like I remember Pill Hill used to be a thing, right? It was Pill Hill because there was a lot of doctors there. I'm trying to think of other.
Well, and to speak to this, so we had a cousin of ours who grew up in the inner city, and what hurt me profoundly was she thought that Girlfriends was unrealistic.
The TV show.
The TV show. And that was my life. I'm like, what do you mean it's unrealistic? And she thought that Menace to Society, Boys in the Hood was real. And that was so far. I thought that that was something that we had just, that was for entertainment purposes. And I didn't realize that my lifestyle and things like that, we were living in different places, even though we were only 10 minutes apart in our environment where we live. But it's real. And so there's a group, I don't know the name of the group, but there's a good group in Chicago where they're purposely taking these kids outside of the area and taking them to museums. I think it's neighborhood. I'm not sure. We'll find out. But they're doing amazing things by just simply taking them and showing them the museums. And they were saying that sometimes they can't afford that. And we can all give back and make it where it's not that big of a gap. Where they're not being able to see these things and see people that look like them and talk like them and are them.
Yes.
So that's the thing. And that's all I wanted to say. Like, you're absolutely right.
Yep. Representation matters, right? So what you see, you believe you can become and achieve. Somebody was the first, but we're out here, y'all. So that is the beautiful part. And as we've shared, the reason we wanted to take this time to do it is because the water that you're swimming in affects the outcome, not only for just you, but for your generations to come. So get out of them polluted waters, get that fresh crystal water. And all I'm saying by that is speak life to yourself over yours and all of us, and we'll all benefit as a nation. Thank you as always for tuning in to You Plant, We Water.
Really water this time. You got all for real. We appreciate you guys as usual.
Bye.